Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Time Under Tension. It has been a while since we've last talked. I guess August 10th was our last episode, which is pretty crazy, but we definitely were excited kicking off this new year. Today is January 1st, with kicking off one of our resolutions for the year, which was to get back on these podcasts and to do so with a lot of intention. I think a lot has happened in both of our lives since August. Dee, you've been pretty busy. What have you been up to since we last talked?
Definitely, I think one of the bigger things that we want to talk about too is just why we fell off, right? What
Yeah.
happened in both of our lives? And for me, I started my business in January of 2023. So when we moved and we were transitioning, I wasn't established in any sort of in-person role. And I was working at Exos over the spring, but that still allowed me a ton of flexibility. And then in July, Arizona State actually hired me as an outside consultant, and I was doing work with their women's volleyball program. And so, what that looked like was I actually was back in athletics, but in a completely separate role as their mental performance coach for the season. And what that looked like was just as it would look um, for an assistant coach. I was traveling every weekend, I was at practice every day, working with the athletes outside the gym, one-on-one sessions, things like that. And to be totally honest, I did not stick to my commitment of showing up and doing our podcast because it was a really slammed time, I think, but also at the same time, throughout the ups and downs and the roller coaster ride of getting back into athletics in a different role, I also was losing myself quite a bit in that. As much as I was staying established in pursuing this new venture of mine, I also found a lot of my old self reemerging, old patterns reemerging. And throughout all of that, I think leading back to the original conversation point that you brought up of this one of our new ventures together and our goals for the new year, it also allowed me to really understand what I wanted to do personally in my goals for the new year, especially around our pursuit of this podcast. But that's where I'm at.
Definitely. And it happens, I think personally, I'm a creature of habit, and that is a gift and a curse all in one because when I establish a habit, I'm pretty good at sustaining it. But when it gets disrupted in any way, it is really challenging for me to maintain that momentum. And so, say, not having this podcast consistently, I use that as a reason not to continue with it. But I'm really excited because I think, as with any goal, and that's something to talk about going into the new year's, one of the things that's going to come up is there's going to be times when outside circumstances or internal circumstances threaten the commitment. And what I tell clients all the time is it's not how often you fall off plan, it's how often you're willing to get back on it. And if you can consistently get back on it every time, focus on that more so than how often you fall off. Because if you're reiterating to yourself, like, I am the person who will reestablish the habit. I am the person who will realign with the vision. That starts to shape your identity. And I think that, along with just our general passion for this podcast and the depth of our interactions within it and the feedback we've gotten from other people who have gotten a lot out of it, continues to fuel the fire for me as to why even to come back to doing it again. I love our conversations. You and I obviously do life together, so we're having conversations every day. But I think doing it in this context is it's different. It provides a different perspective and a different kind of interaction. And I think there, again, that feedback we get from people that this is meaningful and helps give them a different perspective. To me, that's the bigger purpose. And I'm excited to just let God work through this year and see what we learn and what we're able to teach and mutually learn through it all.
Definitely, I think something else to note is we were also navigating through what we were wanting to do just in our what are we going to do together in our business pursuits, but also really just getting through some really challenging defining moments in our relationship. If we're going to be really honest about what was going on, I think the two of us, because we're so rooted in our communication, we're going through a lot, and especially on my side of things, I can be pretty honest about it. I'm doing, that work with Arizona State, and I'm with University of Buffalo and Davidson, and I have my personal clients, and things got really busy, but it showed me that that's one of my coping patterns for when I'm really struggling with something much deeper internally. And how I tend to cope and what that looks like is I get super focused, hyper focused on my work, and then I almost allow my work to become my identity for the most part. And when I'm going through the deeper inner struggles, and for me, it was sexuality and my faith, the deeper I'm getting in my faith, the more challenging it was to avoid the past trauma I had endured in that particular realm of my life. And that was then showing up in our relationship. And it ended up showing up in my old pattern of trying to allow my performance to be this thing that makes me good enough. Um, and throughout all of that, I think the bigger point in all of this was I had to really understand I can really lose myself if I get hyper focused on performance. And the full circle of all of this really showed me how much I want to create balance in my life, and how when I am going to choose the next potential path of what that looks like, whether I'm getting back into coaching or sustaining my business full time, or if I'm doing a little bit of both, the other major aspect of my journey that I want to consistently pour into is our business venture and our relationship in this podcast. I think, to your point, the things we're talking about, the things we're doing together in terms of really sharing pretty raw honesty and sharing raw truths of our own personal stories and God's story within our personal stories and our journey together. It's really significant to both of us and really important to both of us. And so us being really open and transparent about, yeah, as a couple, you're going to go through ups and downs, but that's going to be leading you to the deepest clarity when you're willing to do that with honesty and open communication. And so I just wanted to point that out. And I don't know if you want to point anything else out in your personal perspective of the journey on your side of things.
Yeah, definitely. I think that for me, one thing I've learned is I'll often look to you as the leader with things. So for something like even the podcast, um, if say you have a week where you're not able to do it or whatever, your schedule changes, I won't often be the accountability partner that I would like to be in that. And so with my schedule, usually being a little bit more flexible, I think it's important that one, we start off this year aligning with goals, which is something we'll talk about in a little bit. But two, just like being accountability partners and not seeing either one of us as superior in the relationship or dictating what gets done or doesn't get done. It's more of like, I feel like this year, as hard as it's been through our individual trials, uh, even this podcast being called time under tension, because that's really the most time that we spend in growth is under tension. It seems like in our relationship have really gotten to a point of like, hey, we both know each other now and we both have this level of communication that says, hey, this is what's important to me, can you help me in this pursuit in my life, knowing that there's going to be times when one or the other of us is struggling to stick to something that we said or maintain a mindset that we are striving to or have committed to. And I just see that, just like with, for me, lifting is just an arena in which to grow. And I think everything in life presents that. So whether you want to grow, you want to grow through lifting or, a sport or, music or whatever kind of pursuit it is, whatever you do, what are the qualities that you're embodying while you're doing it? And I think that just like with that, this podcast is a great opportunity to practice some of the qualities that we want to develop as people. And because it is something that also serves other people, to me, that always adds another layer of accountability to it because it's bigger than just me and you. It's more about like the message that we feel like God is calling us to share with other people. And to me, that's probably the biggest purpose that either of us could possibly have on this earth.
Definitely. I think that's a great segue into talking about our individual goals. I think you spoke a lot about just even some brief parts of your personality or maybe some of your monthly character aspirations that you mentioned briefly, but maybe you can start us off with just mentioning your 2024 personal goals. I can mention mine, and then we can speak a little bit more to the ones we have together.
Totally. So I love New Year's. It's probably my favorite time of year because I'm so nerdy and I'm such a planner. And just as a um, just as an example, for those of you who are watching, I'm gonna show you just how nerdy I am with this. So I like legitimately made this spreadsheet, which Dee helped me with the formulas, but of the things that are important to me in terms of habits this year, and there's a column for each day of the year, and just tracking things that I want to be really consistent with. And the goal of this is not that every single box is checked every single day of the year. For me, it's more about, okay, I'm going to do this for a month, and then my goal is to go back and review the month and see, like, okay, did it taper off at the end of the month? Or, am I pretty consistently getting it most days? Or am I seeing any kind of pattern of when it starts to fall off? And I just always get so much fire for my year, getting time to set some goals. And honestly, the more often I do this, the more each year, it's amazing to me how many things stay the same. Like, it's always important to me to spend time in the Bible. It's always important to me to monitor my health parameters and make sure that I'm sleeping well. It's always important to me to journal. It's always important to me to foster my relationships. Now, just because those are important to me doesn't always mean that I'm super consistent about applying the habits and maintaining the accountability that I need to. But I'm excited because every year I feel like I get a little bit closer to finding, or I just continue to fine tune my process with it. So for my personal goals this year, some of them are a little bit vague, and that goes against, all the principles of smart goal setting, but I know what they mean to me. And some of them I need to be a little bit more vague on because of my history. So one is nourish my body. I don't get super specific with the kind of diet or the amount of food because that doesn't work really well for me, but I know what that means for me and to prioritize like fueling my body for the activity that I want to do, to move my body in a well-rounded way. So for me, jujitsu, weightlifting, I've been running a little bit, just making sure I'm doing cardio, mobility, stretching, that I'm doing that in a balanced way across a week, across a month. Consistent sleep routine and improving sleep quality. I'd say I'm pretty good at this overall. One of our other goals together was no THC, at least in January, and I think that's going to contribute greatly to improved sleep quality as well. This year, I really am committed to reading the whole Bible. I've started it different years in my life and tend to get bogged down once I get to like Leviticus. So we're just going to chug through it. I'm really excited to just take that time, and I've already gotten started on this. And I just think having that specific time in the day to do that, um, I already am in the Bible every day. And now to do it in a way that's going to allow me to move through the whole story and really see how the story looks as a whole. That's something you really inspired me with in this past year in your own journey. I would like to compete in 2 jujitsu competitions as long as that's in alignment with my health. Consistently invest in relationships. I made a list of people who are important. I had a list of people who are roots, branches, and leaves. And roots are like the deep friendships. Branches are like, these are important, but may only be for a time. And leaves are usually maybe just for a season or in a particular context. And my goal mainly is to invest in those root relationships and make sure that I'm reaching out to those people consistently. So every day, texting, calling someone, and just making sure that I'm investing in those relationships that I want to continue to foster, which takes a lot of intentionality as an adult, especially when you're not living near people. We're going to be moving pretty soon. So moving and joining a church community and then consistently attending, that's really important. I'd like to increase my savings and potentially start a new job if that's needed for financial stability. And then build a website. I'm doing a functional nutrition program, so I should finish that in the next 2 months. And then I'm doing a sales team program as well. And then read 12 books, which is something that I did pretty easily last year. but I want to do more in-person reading. So taking at least 30 minutes a day to actually sit down and read a paper book as opposed to just Audible. I'm excited to just build that skill. That's it.
Awesome.
And what
It's
about you?
cool. I definitely, by the way, anyone wanting her sheet, $5 maybe, Liv, is a good way to
$5,
sell
yeah.
that sheet that you just
$5
created. Yeah.
goes straight to
So Liv,
improving the podcast.
right. I got it for free this morning, due to my formula knowing from my grad school program, but it's awesome because this is my spreadsheet. This is to the extent that I nerd out over my goals. Is I just rip out a piece of my journal paper and then I put it on the fridge. So I'm definitely stealing her nerdiness and her organization. But I thought that was really cool, Liv, that you did that, you created that and spent so much time doing that, because I think the areas you motivate me and inspire me is your devotion to your processes and really making yourself the person who you would like to be in each day, because you're choosing to have things all over your screensaver and you have things sticky notes and you have all of your notebooks next to you and you're always checking things off. And I mean, there's like 7 highlighters on our counter and just
Yes.
everything about it is really cool. Whereas for me, I just kind of tend to keep it all in my brain and on my one sheeter with all my notes everywhere. But yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. I'll list mine too. My 2024 goals, my 2023 goals, by the way, were brush my teeth at least 2 times a day, read the Bible. I don't have all these, so I'm just thinking about them out loud. Read the Bible in a year. Um, Therapy, which is awesome. Um, and I'll have to get back to you. I'll write in the comments on the other ones, but some of the other ones that I had were ones that have definitely rooted me in knowing exactly what I want to do for 2024, which I think was really cool for me to sit down and reflect on when we sat down yesterday. So, 2024 goals for me, I have at the top to be grateful. And my first goal is to live each day on purpose by setting an intention or a plan for the day. And the reason be grateful is attached to that is because I want to show up with a particular art posture. I want to show up with a particular attitude in my mind, because, like I just spoke about, the entire fall, I was really caught in fear of punishment. I was really caught in shame. I was really caught in fear of not being good enough. I was just stuck in and almost ruminating and dwelling on these thoughts that really kept me feeling not only fearful of if I was loved by God, but also just depressed and down, and definitely feeling really challenged just by the day to day aspects of my life. So I think one of the biggest things I want to do is cultivate that on purpose feeling of gratitude and gratefulness, just regardless of the circumstances. Like, I'm sick right now, but all I've been saying, after Liv got me the meds, all I've been saying is that this is a good thing, and God is really taking all of the things that no longer serve me and helping me release them as I come into the year. My second one is meditate, stillness practice every day, plus my devotionals. I was super adamant about my devotionals every day. However, I was not adamant about my meditation and stillness practice. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons I got caught stuck in the law or the word in the Bible, in the devotionals, and not in my relationship to God and the word as Jesus Christ. I wasn't taking that time to get still and meditate. I was just reading and then applying all of those dwelling thoughts of fear onto scripture and then making myself feel even more fear about potentially not living in righteousness. So meditation and stillness is definitely my anchor practice that I want to do every day. Service opportunity established for a while now. I've really wanted to work and serve in the prison community or in some sort of um, service opportunity outside of myself. Again, we talked about this with yours. Join a church community with and have regular attendance. I think the biggest thing that we've noticed as a couple that we're really, really wanting in this next move is a community to really grow and do our life next to. Friends are something that I think we're both prioritizing in this next season. Find and instill a couch hobby. So I go to therapy right now, and I have been told that I need to learn how to sit and have a hobby on the couch. And so that is a big, big goal of mine because I also just struggle in general to have hobbies. I feel like my whole life was sports and athletics. So all I was doing was moving around. And with my current health situation, I'm at a place where I'm not allowed to train. I'm not allowed to do anything besides yoga and walk, not incline walking, nothing. It's to the point where I'm, really, really basic in my movements just to get my health back to my hormones back online and things of that nature. So a couch hobby is going to be adamant to my capacity to feel productive and to feel efficient in my personal growth. I have read 7 books because I'm not a reader, and 12 books sounds like a whole lot. So I went with 7. That's where we're at. Monthly goal around THC, January, no THC. So for me, I have a monthly check-in. That's one of my like outside goals is every single month I'm going to have a check-in where I'm understanding what I'm learning from God and how I want to go about applying that the following month. I feel like I'm continually learning and growing and being taught something that I want to make sure I'm applying that to my next month goals. Same thing is going to be around THC and weed. Is okay. Well, I guess that's the same thing, but there's there's going to be a month to month assessment for me. Transition my business to spirituality focus, so social media reflection of that. I'm working with someone, she's awesome, named Spencer. She's helping me kind of transition my business from solely mental performance and inserting a ton of who I truly am, which is the spirituality aspect of myself. And so it's not as reflected on my social platforms as I would like it. I'm not a fan of social media. I do not like to do the posting. I can, click something and put it on my story, but I don't necessarily like that part of business. And so hiring somebody and having somebody who's going to help me really transition my social media to reflect where I truly want my business to go, which is much more of that trauma informed life coaching piece of myself, that transformational empowerment coaching, that spiritual empowerment coaching piece. I really want to transition my business in that regard. So getting social media really outlined is important. Journal 3 times a week, actually sitting down and writing. Journaling is going to be important for my reflection. Prayer in my morning routine. I've had a really strange relationship with prayer. I've almost felt like I don't know how to talk to God necessarily. It's much easier for me to just in my mind ask the Holy Spirit to speak for me, but I want to be really intentional about actually using my voice and speaking to God externally in prayer, where I'm truly devoting myself to building that connection with him where I feel like I can come to him and have him be my safe place. Move my body in new ways. Obviously, up until this point, I've been a collegiate athlete and a bodybuilder, and that is no longer, either one of those are no longer options for me considering my health. I had POTS, and now I'm just realizing that I don't have any sort of hormonal function in my body necessarily that can sustain any sort of additional stress. So I'm hoping to find these newer ways to reframe movement and start to just focus on the feeling good inside my body piece and really letting go of my appearance being something that is a determinant of my happiness or well-being in life. So I put yoga, volleyball league, Pilates, spin class, surfing, depending on where we end up. Fuel for nourishment, so similar to yours, just making sure I'm fueling for nutrition purposes. Establish a morning routine and evening routine and allow for change in that space. So as I establish that routine, I want to make sure that I'm also allowing for changes depending on the new role that I have, depending on the season I'm in, depending on different things that I need during those times. I don't want to have it be something that's so rigorous that I'm doing things I don't actually want to do that aren't serving me any longer. Be honest 100%. That's a big one. I tend to either not say how I feel out of fear of some sort of conflict or someone maybe not really liking what I'm saying to them. And I just don't want to keep telling like little white lies just out of protection. And usually this shows up in my family dynamic, to be totally honest. I have a really hard time being totally truthful. when I fear that there's going to be some sort of response that could shake the harmony and the peace. Live in love, I am love, same thing. Kingdom thoughts, Jesus lens, that is all just wrapped around what I've talked about earlier in this. See others for their insides, remove judgment as an intention. So I know I can't always do that. I don't expect myself to be perfect in that, but I really want to start seeing everybody for their inner spirit and who they are as a child of God. I think that is monumental to my own capacity to see my own reflection when people are mirroring to me, and also allowing myself to heal a ton in my judgment of my external body. Really trying to remove that. I think our, if people don't know this, we actually put like white paper on our mirrors and started writing all these affirmations on it, which is wicked cool. So now we have this like all lives like on our tiptoes, like, you know, trying to get her head above her calf game is wicked now, I will say. So my head being up above the thing, I just, you know, my feet are flat and my calves look fine, but Liv's got just freaking huge calves now because of it. So and then my last one is uh work to live fluidly and dance in the darkness. So that's just kind of like a mantra. I want to, regardless of my circumstances, when it's dark in my external circumstances, I want to keep dancing and stay fluid and change and adapt and not get so stuck, and really just allow things to move through me. So my words are anchor and balance for the year, and that's that. That's what I got.
I love that. Words, can we talk about that for a minute? Your words, what
Yeah.
does that mean? Where does that
Mhm.
come from?
Every year, well, actually, not every year. What am I saying? Probably the last 3 years since I've been a Christian, I have been at a sermon. Usually, Elevation Church is where we're at, but this year we did Restore Austin's service. And the word of the year is something that you open your heart and your mind to God, and He gives you this word for the year. And I, in my personal journey, and I would love to hear how you come to find yours to live, but for me, it's mostly sometimes I don't even know why. Like last year, my word was promise, and I had no idea why that was my word. I just knew it was supposed to be my word. It was the first thing that came to me when I just got quiet and still in prayer. And if anything, that kept me grounded in this crazy uprooting season of my trauma and just everything that's happened this year, it's holding on to God's promises to me. And if I hadn't held on to his promises, I really don't know where my life would be right now, because I would have made decisions that definitely were not living in the spirit decisions. And this year I heard the word anchor in another sermon, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like that is exactly the word that I need. I need to anchor myself in God. I need to anchor myself in the truth of his love and his goodness, and I need to anchor myself in the resurrection of Christ as the anchor of my faith, and have that be something that I'm consistently dwelling upon and looking at this life through and looking at myself through. And then balance was just this other one because I feel like it's just a extremely important metric of health in all aspects, whether it's your actual capacity to balance, and I heard this in our yoga session yesterday, or just creating balance in general, work life balance, you know, balance in, you know, our social life, and just making sure that there's this equal amount of giving to the things that are needing to be prioritized in the season that I'm in. So that was kind of how I got to getting myself rooted and anchored, but also being able to sustain my balance as I continue through this year.
I love that. Love that. I think that it's interesting how we like find the words too. You asked me a couple days ago, what's your word? And I'm like, I don't know. I like to set character goals. So for the month, character trait or characteristic I want to work on developing. And a lot of mine have been around courage, confidence. This month is decisiveness. So just being able to like make a decision based on, whatever information I have, the best of my abilities, and then trusting I can learn from that. So a lot of my words end up being around things like that from month to month. But my yearly words are usually different. Like I honestly, I don't even remember what this year's was. I didn't hold on to it enough. But the year before it was, there was two, uproot and reground, and it was all about just like getting rid of the old and planting the new. And this year, as I thought about words, I just found myself coming back to the same words, courage, confidence over and over. And then I felt the word secure. And I'm like, I don't know, like secure is just kind of like, it holds a weird tone for me because insecure has held a strange meaning throughout my life. And I don't love that. And being secure just sounds like, all right, try to force yourself to just be secure. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized like being courageous and being confident comes from true security in something more than the external can provide. So being secure in Christ, like my struggle with financial security doesn't come from my financial state. It comes from trying to place my sense of security in my finances. My insecurity in our relationship doesn't come from your actions or my inabilities as a partner. It comes from my placing my security in our relationship and not in Christ. So secure to me means staying really rooted in God and trusting that he is providing at all times. And then those other characteristics that I want to develop and we'll be focusing on from month to month, I think they all come out of that place of being secure. And I want to just embody that sense of like secureness, security throughout this year and act out of that, out of this like deep knowing of my identity and what God can do through me.
So good. Do we want to move into our goals together? Do you want to share
Yeah,
those with everyone?
definitely. So we wrote down some goals together for the year. And we have five total. So the first is a weekly check-in, which is something we've been talking about over the last month or so as something we want to do consistently, which is, I think, a really cool opportunity each week. We decided on Sunday to get together and talk about our relationship, what's going well, how did you feel loved this week? Is there anything that you feel like you need from me? Things like that. Just kind of an open conversation. And I think this presents a really safe place to talk about stuff that could be difficult, especially if you're in the middle of the storm, in the middle of your week, in the middle of the emotion, not to delay the conversation, but to say, hey, here's this like neutral ground where we're both totally free to come to each other, guards down, like we've talked about before, beach ball outside of us. What do each of us need and how can we support each other in being our best selves? And also for us talking about what we want to do together business wise, because we know that our purposes merge and this podcast is just one example of that. So we want to have a consistent time that we're going to talk about that as well. I guess the second goal is the podcast. So getting consistent with this each week and setting a monthly schedule, which we'll go over our first topic here in a minute, which I'm excited about. Thirdly, 2 date nights a month, one being a new adventure. So we hang out a lot. We really do a lot together and we tend to hang out at home, which is fine. And I honestly have a blast with that. But I think one thing both of us have talked about doing is like, let's go do other things, try new stuff. And um, with that, I think having the once monthly just new adventure, especially moving to a new place, will give us an opportunity to go try new things, get out, do art, get active, whatever that looks like, make friends, and just like continue to expand our horizons in this life. Nightly devotional. So we both have our individual goals or habits with our Bible reading, but I think doing a devotional together each night, something I'm really excited about, so we can talk about our readings. We tend to do devotionals together and then we'll send each other audio message or send each other notes of what we got from the devotional, but I'm excited to actually read together and to discuss it after our reading directly. And lastly, a new hobby. We've talked about a lot of different things that we want to try. So I imagine our like monthly adventures will be an opportunity to try new things that may become hobbies. But like I said, we we work together, we'll hang out at home together, we do a lot of stuff together, but to actually do something, I think, more intentional together, if that's like joining a rec league or having a art hobby or doing dance lessons together, like I'm just excited to see what we can do.
Me giving Liv dance lessons is what she thinks there.
Right. She's like, move your hips. You're so stiff.
That's funny. Um, yeah, cool. I think one of the coolest things about all of this, though, is I think we really are super intentional about our relationship. And if anything, when we think about our business moving forward, one of the biggest things we talk about is helping people change their lives. And what's really cool about the two of us as well is that we're complete opposites. And that's beneficial as well because we kind of create the whole being in our oppositeness, if that's a word. I'm much more emotional, much more around the trauma and the mindset and being able to really dive into the mental patterns and things like that. And Live is so much more about the application. And I think what's so cool about that is we've actually seen how having each other as spiritual partners in our lives has really allowed us both to come into a lot more of a well-rounded well-being. I think I was really not great at action, and I think I've definitely been able to help Liv also start to think more about her thoughts and her emotions and being willing to speak about her emotions and things like that. So it's really cool. I'm really, really excited to see what comes from that. But I think we're going to really kick off pushing out a lot of the things that we have really seen in our own personal journey in some of these monthly, what are we calling them?
Monthly
Monthly,
check-ins.
no, what are we doing? Our
Oh,
monthly series that we're doing. Yeah, our monthly series, which I'm gonna let Liv introduce it because she speaks a little bit more clearly than I do, but I think it's gonna be something that you guys will be really excited about. And I would love, love, love engagement. Love more engagement, love more questions, couples therapy, whatever you guys want, throw it in the chat. It would be extremely, extremely cool to have there be a community that's built around this where we can provide a very safe environment to talk about the things that aren't spoken about, as well as sharing our own personal journeys. I think we're both open books. So as we get into sharing our first series for the rest of January and series moving forward, let us know what you guys want to hear. Let us know what's on your mind, what you're thinking about, anything. We would just really love to start to build something that's much more than, again, like Liv said, than what the two of us can share in our own personal testimonies, but what we can really build in almost the shared consciousness towards love and peace and joy.
definitely. So, kind of in the spirit of the new year, we're going to be talking about doing a series called Old to New. And in this series, Dee had mentioned a concept a few weeks back that really stuck out to me. It was Israelite to disciple. And it's this idea of the journey, the overarching journey of the Christian faith and relationship with God from the Old Testament to the New Testament and what that looks like, not only as an overview in that biblical journey, but really how that macrocosm is reflected in the microcosms of our own individual lives. So, really, the value of a story, whether the story is the Bible or the story is Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, is that there's some aspect of the story that's relatable to us because we can see how the battles and the challenges are things that are reflected in our own lives. The overcoming is something that we hope for in our own lives. The reward and the growth and the recognition that is as well. And so I'm excited to just do this like narrative review of this journey from old to new, and then what does that really look like in our actual relationship with God and our spiritual journey from day to day. And we'll be talking about this biblically, and we'll be talking about it testimonially in our own stories. And we'll be kind of working through this in different phases, so to speak, from, being in Egypt to wandering in the desert to the baptism to actual discipleship in modern day times and what that journey looks like.
And now everybody knows why I wanted you to reveal.
Any excuse to use the word microcosm, and I'm just so happy.
Right. I was like, whoo! I'm out here like, yes, we talked about this.
But we're really excited. So next week we'll be
Yeah.
kicking off the very first of this series officially, which will be um, Egypt. So what that looks like. And if you're not familiar with the Bible, that's okay. Like no prerequisites for this. And if you're not a Christian, if you are atheist or whatever your belief system is, even if you're just curious or open to different perspectives, that's really what I would ask, is that you just come into it with openness. This is something that we share because not because we were both raised in it. I was raised in the church, you were raised in the church in different capacities, but it's because it's what we've both come back to of our own free will and have seen it change our lives like drastically from day to day. And personally, I think we've both seen how it's completely transformed each other throughout our relationship together as we've both pursued our relationships with God. So if you're interested in personal growth, which is really what this podcast is all about, stick around, because we have studied personal development in every way, from energies to
Mm,
trauma to
mm.
habits to stoicism, like every corner of this. And we come back to our overarching storyline being that of Christ. And so that's what we're excited to share. And I think it'll present a lot of cool perspectives and conversations that'll come up regardless of your worldview. And we're not closed to being challenged or any objections that you might have. So if, hey, you grew up in the church and it has not been a good experience for you, or there seems to be contradictions, like that's where we ask for your engagement, because we want those conversations. And it's only through like a mutual commitment to the truth that we can work through some of the things that come up and really come to what is the deep truth and what are we all driven by. And I think hopefully we all come to that deep truth being love at the end of the day.
Awesome. Everyone has a seat at the table. I love that. All
Yes,
inclusive, not a single person that doesn't get to come to the table of Christ. So please, 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 in all your entirety and all your imperfections, you're perfectly imperfect. So please come. Please join our table.
definitely. So thank you guys so much for joining, for listening to our journeys, for sticking around even when we've taken these long breaks, and just giving us grace and knowing we are absolutely human and life comes up and we let it get in the way sometimes. And now we're just excited to get back to you and share this journey with you again. So definitely stay tuned in the weeks to come. These podcasts will be released each week. To support, like, comment, subscribe, share this on your Instagram stories, share it with friends who might benefit from it. Really, we just want to spread the word and get some good engagement. So if you think of anybody who might enjoy this, definitely feel free to share it. And if you want to connect with us, I'm going to put our contact info below, so you can reach out to us via email or just DM us. Whatever is best for you, we're happy to always talk to you. So thank you guys so much for listening and watching. We will catch you next time on Time Under Tension.